I'm Weston Terray, and I'm here in Porto, Portugal with Precarious, which is my first feature. And this is the world premiere for this. And it's been a long time coming to this point. It's been an idea that's been in my head since film school. So it's been in my head for maybe the last 20 years, but for the longest time I wasn't sure how to make it, and I finally came to the realization that I needed to dive in, and for better or worse, no matter how crudely it was done, just go ahead and dive into the world. And so Precarious came about from there's a series of boys' adventure novels from the 1960s that I'm sure are in different cultures, whether it's the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Three Investigators, that are chapter books, and that they are, each chapter is ending in a cliffhanger, and it's just this serialized adventures. And there was something very exciting about taking that idea and loosening it up to have more complicated characters, but then also to put it in the frame of the dream logic of something like Alice in Wonderland. It felt like a place that there was going to constantly be new inspiration to explore. And to have the freedom to spend so much time and work chronologically meant that it was constantly fresh each day, waking up in the set. And the set itself was my loft apartment, and so the production was designed in a way that it was expanding to the full limits of the space available, and became this nice blend of living in it and then also thinking about it and then shaping it. But as far as what influenced it, there's so many different. There's a lot of movies, but then there's also a lot of literature that there's just so much to draw from, whether it's Kafka or Borges or Cortázar, and then into movies there's certainly Gilliam, Burton, Lynch. These are all filmmakers and worlds that I love, and the ability to tear out of reality and build something very specific out of cardboard and foam gives me such joy that even though I'm here having a great time at the festival, there is just an excitement to get back and start working on the next one, which...
Tell me, Weston, a little bit about the title to begin with. Precarious. Why and how did you come up with this title?
Precarious was, before I get to the title, it's interesting that I did not have a team of people to work on it. It was just a single DSLR and one microphone, and I did not hire a crew. It was... The only person who came on early was an art director, and her and one other assistant, we just slowly but surely, almost like a painting or a sculpture, build it piece by piece rather than needing a large group of people to pull it off. And Precarious was a title that the art director came in one day and just said, this is it. And the thing is, titles are so personal in the fact that once it's attached, it's difficult to move away from it. But we just knew right then and there that the idea that the main character always being pressurized and always on the verge of falling off of the story, it just felt ideal.
And how did you become a filmmaker? Well, it's your second film, if I'm right.
I've made two shorts, but this is the first feature.
All right. Okay. And how did you start doing the short film? That's film school, or?
I went to NYU for hand-drawn animation, and for the longest time I thought that I would be working at Disney or Warner Brothers and being a character animator, but I found that I didn't have the patience to stay behind the drawing disc for that long. But what I feel happy about is being able to approach live-action filmmaking as stop motion with a family of people that gives feedback, and it gives a little bit more emotional depth than what the difficulties of translating that directly by pencil and paper. And so that was the evolution of starting. And the education in animation is extraordinary in the fact that it gives an appreciation of the single frame, of not wasting time, or a specificity or intent to what you're doing. And so, yeah, that's how it started.
One question for our audience. Can you describe the opening scene, the title sequence film, opening scene, and how you did it?
There was an importance on trying to do as much practically as possible. There are digital effects that were inevitable, but for the opening credits, the excitement was, the original concept was starting with nothing, emptiness, a blank white field, and seeing the world of the movie start to come together to underscore how hand-built it was. And so what it's supposed to be is the accumulation of ideas starting with the sketches, and starting with the costuming, and starting to move into, say, the bricks that show the physical architecture of the world coming together, and then evolving to the model of the house, which starts to give you a sense of location, and also setting a certain pace to it to let people know that, to sort of start lulling them into the dream instead of feeling like they're going to be racing through an action adventure story.
Yeah, and how was the reception and the reaction in Fantasporto so far? How's it been?
So far, it's an incredibly, what's nice about a festival like Fantasporto is that it's an extremely respectful audience, and there is there's a classiness to the proceedings. It's very difficult to have something so personal. The project can't help but be personal for me. Whether somebody sees it as personal, it's hard to say, but meeting people and just starting to talk about it is, I feel like I can finally relax and let it go out into the world instead of having contained it in my head for so long.
Yeah, because I've heard so many good things about the film, and isn't it the world premiere?
It's intense. It's the first time that strangers are seeing it outside of cast and crew.
Oh, really? Yeah. Amazing. Yes. And what's the next one?
Well, this was a alternative version of 1960s. We are shifting back to a hazily remembered alternate version of the 1660s. So the time of Vermeer in Amsterdam, but not as period piece. What we're excited about is a fairy tale, but what's different about this is a fairy tale that's in the back alleyways, very far away from knights and dragons. If there's a castle, it's off on the distance. We're far enough away that there still is enchantment, but it's far more subtle, and it feels like, again, just an extraordinary space to explore.
And how are you producing these movies? How do you raise funds, or what's your business plan like?
That assumes that there is a business plan. At this point, I'm approaching it non-commercially in the sense that it's almost like fine art, that through the use of animation techniques, and slowly but surely it's possible to make these inexpensively, which I feel like is the only way to operate in 2020, and so it's a question of making the most out of the assets at hand. But there's so many tools. At this point, a lot can be done with a little, and so it's almost exciting to figure out how to do something that would seem unthinkable 10, 20 years ago. And while I'm having a great time here in Portugal, I want to specifically thank filmfestivals.com and thank you for watching.
Thank you.